Okay, good morning, beloved. Once again, this is Reverend Irma Forward, and we're inviting you to wake up to your spiritual and social awareness. And we're going to delve into the magnificent being that you are. This program is brought to you by the Center for Spiritual Enrichment, honoring the memory of the late Reverend Dr. Sue Constantinidis. Reverend Sue always taught of self-empowerment through the application of spiritual principles. We have a lot to talk about. Once again, however, I'm Reverend Irma Forward, and my spiritual companion on this journey this morning is Reverend LaVon Andrews, who, along with her husband, the Reverend Dr. Don Welsh, are ministers of the Center for Spiritual Living Inland Empire. In addition, we have holding the high watch, being in prayer for the success of this program, a long-standing religious scientist, Patty Walton, and we're grateful for her prayer support this morning. Now, this weekend is Memorial Day weekend, and I would just simply like to remind you that this weekend is really celebrating the ones who have given the ultimate sacrifice to keep our country safe, to keep our country free the way that it is, and so much more. And we have 5 branches of military service that actually do that. And so I want to say just a little bit in support of each branch of the service. We're talking first about the Army. We give thanks for those who lived among us, and now they experience eternal freedom. These are the ones serving in the Army who gave the ultimate sacrifice. We also had naval support, and many of them gave the ultimate sacrifice as well. And our prayer to them is one of gratitude for received encouragement and protection. For companionship, we express our gratitude. We have also the Air Force. The Air Force is extremely powerful, and we acknowledge them. Many of them as well gave the ultimate sacrifice of their lives. And we want to honor the idea of eternal life as we embrace the ideal of our continuing cosmic fellowship, a fellowship that is beyond time and space. We talk also about our Marines, and we want to open each day in love and deep expectation aligned with hope, because of the all-pervading presence of God. We also have our Coast Guard, and we honor our divine sonship in the knowledge that God continues to represent itself as each one of us. And so that is our tribute to our military this morning. Just to let you know that many of the national cemeteries have flags on the graves of many of our lost ones, and so we want to acknowledge them this day. And there are parades and other forms of celebration taking place in many of our communities, so you may want to find one and participate if you're so inclined. We give thanks for that. Our purpose today is to assist you in understanding your oneness with all that there is as you thrive in this dimension of life. And once again, as I indicated earlier, we have with us Reverend LaVon Andrews. And Reverend LaVon and her husband are co-pastors at the Center for Spiritual Living Inland Empire, 2404 Golden Avenue in San Bernardino. And there are some activities that are taking place there this coming Thursday. Yes, Reverend LaVon?
Yes, we have a food giveaway, which is just amazing. 3 churches have come together that all meet at our center. And one is the Shower of Blessings with Pastor Wilbon. Another one is the Spanish-speaking group with Pastor Miguel. And the 3 of us decided to get together and give food away for the people in the community. And they don't have to be somebody who doesn't have a home. It can be anybody who wants and needs food. You know, we all want and need food. And so we feel that we're feeding people spiritually as well as physically. And it's this coming Thursday from 10 to noon, or whenever the food runs out, or whenever we get exhausted, because we're hoping a lot of people come. And it's just a wonderful way to give back to the community, this beautiful area that we live in San Bernardino.
Wonderful, wonderful. And so just look forward to that this Thursday. And once again, that address is 2404 Golden Avenue in San Bernardino. The church is situated just north of Highland Avenue. So if you have a need, feel free to drop by between the hours of 10 and noon for that kind of support. So now we're looking forward to this day. And so we're inviting, once again, Reverend Levon to anchor us in prayer. And we're calling that our evocation, because what we know is that the Spirit of the living God is within each of us. And so we want to evoke that presence out into the universe, out into community. And so, Reverend Levon.
I'd be honored. Thank you. So if you're comfortable to close your eyes, that's good. If not, you can just look at a spot in front of you and just let's take a nice deep breath together and release the breath. And know that this breath is the breath of God. It's the breath of you. It's the breath of the very beginning, before the beginning. It's your first breath that you ever took. And it represents the breath of those who are just born right this moment. It's the breath of all the plants and animals. The breath of the fish as well, and with their gills and how they breathe that wisdom of life that each one of us has as they swim among God's blessings. And so I know that our planet is blessed by Mother Earth. It is also blessed by Father Sky as he works in tandem with beautiful Mother Earth to create the food and the sustenance that we need to continue to live in a delicious, vivacious manner of accepting that deep within ourselves is that God self. The one that wants to be expressed, that needs to be expressed, that can only be expressed through you. You are powerful. You are unique. You are different. You're one of a kind. And that's why we're all here, is to represent all the facets of God that are available. In looking around, this is what I see, facets of God. How beautiful it is, just like a diamond in the rough that becomes more glistening the more that it's cut into fine divine shapes. And so each one of us are tapping into that truth that dwells within as we honor ourselves. And so just knowing this truth and being one with it, I am grateful for each person who's listening today, to those of you who touch others in your lives because of your consciousness, and know that we are all aroused by the thoughts of God. And so knowing this truth and being one with it and loving it, I just lovingly release my word, knowing that it goes forth perfectly because it's all God, it's all good. And I proclaim it by saying, and so it is.
Wow. That is a powerful statement of our prayer. It is a powerful statement of our actual being. Just simply to know that we're kind of like a diamond in the rough. Reverend Levon, have you seen a geode?
Yes.
And you're cut through a geode. The geode looks kind of not too attractive on the outside. It's just a piece of rock. And that's what we all are until we get to the point where we're able to experience the love of God and to acknowledge who and what we are. When the geode is cut open, what happens? There are these beautiful crystals inside the geode, and they represent many stages of of gemology. So you can have an amethyst, you can have a white quartz, and they're all shining and glistening. And that's what's inside of each one of us. We may be kind of rough on the surface, but inside us, inside each one of us, is that glows and glistens and is representing the God presence that we are. You know, there was what was called a royal wedding last week, and it came to me during this week, however, that we are all royal. We're all royals because we are all descendants. We are all representing the power and the presence that we call God, God existing from beyond time itself. And so we acknowledge that we are heirs of this energy that is called God, and we give thanks for that, and knowing that because of this that we're royal too. That we are princes and prince of this divine energy. And so we want to waken you up this morning to who and what you are, for you are that royal being, and we will talk about that a little more. But Reverend LaVon has a surprise for us, and she's going to sing a little song. But are you going to talk first
Yeah, let
about
me tell
why
this
you're singing this
story.
song for us?
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
From the time I was 3 years old, I was afraid of dogs because I had a situation when I was a little tiny girl that wasn't very attractive. And so for years I fought this fear. And I've loved other people's dogs from afar. I've petted dogs. I thought they were really sweet, but didn't want to own one. I did have one for my children when they were small because I didn't want them to experience the fear that I'd had. And that was fine. They took care of our little dog and everything was fine. And then once they left home and went on their way, I never got another one. However, when we first took over as the co-ministers of the Center for Spiritual Living in San Bernardino, there was a little stray mutt out in the parking lot. It's a big parking lot, and he just sat there. I thought it was a he. It turns out it was a she. She sat there for several days. I was really concerned. Finally, I went to the pet store and bought some food that I heard was healthy. I told them the story. I took a picture of her. She was very, very matted, a real mess. It turns out she had the little foxtails in her, and burrs and briars and sticks and stones, everything. And I felt so sad for her. And yet she did come up to the footstep, and I sat there for about 45 minutes with her and petted her, or what seemed to be skin somewhere deep underneath that fur. And finally, I have a cat, so I was concerned, but the cat and her just stared at each other through the screen door. And I thought, okay, she belongs to somebody. Well, 7 days later, she still did not belong to somebody, and she started coming around. I heard her crying outside the bathroom window, and this little, and I was like, oh no. And I said to my husband, I can't stand it any longer. I'm going to go get her. I can't stand this. I took a towel out there. Remember, I was scared of dogs, okay? I took a towel out there, put it down, put the little doggie on it. She came over because now we kind of had confidence built up between us. I wrapped a towel around her. I brought her inside. She was shaking. I was shaking. And I took her in and said to my husband, look what I've got. He goes, really? She and I bonded. She settled down. She was so happy. A few days later, we posted it on Nextdoor to see if she belonged to anybody. Nobody responded. I went to a vet, got her shots, got her groomed. She looked like a brand new dog. She was a little teeny tiny thing, not big and fluffy, and she needed cleaning up. So I posted this story on my Facebook page, and a lady who I don't know sent me a song called God and Dog. When I heard it, I cried all the way through it because I realized the love that I had for this sweet little dog. So I'd like to do that song for you now.
Yes, please.
So here's how it goes.
Okay.
I look up and I see God. I look down and see my dog. Simple spelling, G-O-D. Same word backwards, D-O-G. She would stay with me all day. I'm the one who goes away. But all the time she waits for me. She'll dance at my return with glee. Both love me no matter what. Divine God and canine mutt. I take it hard each time I fail, but God forgives, dog wags her tail. God thought up and made the dog. Dodd reflects a part of God. I've seen love from both sides now. It's everywhere. Amen. Bow wow. I look up and I see God. I look down and see my dog. And in my human frailty, I can't match her love for me. And so it is.
And so it is. That is wonderful. That is a wonderful story. And actually, I will have to admit that I have seen the dog, and she's just wonderful. Reverend LaVon feels that perhaps she had a good home and got led astray somehow because she's very supportive. The dog is very obedient, so to speak, and knows how to act. And when I say knows how to act, she is just simply a good dog. And so we're grateful that they have found each other. God finding God in and of itself. That's what this experience has been. And so we're grateful for it. And so we are understanding from this experience that we are all one with all of life, and that the purpose for everyone is simply to thrive. And we give thanks for that constantly. So we're going to be talking a little bit about who you are in the divine scheme of things today, and to simply know once again that you are royal, that you are magnificent, and that you are a prince or princess of the Most High God. And we are giving thanks for that this morning. But first, at this point in time, we're going to have a little bit of a station break. This is KCAA in Loma Linda.
News, weather, and talk on KCAA 102.3 FM, broadcasting to the Moreno Valley, Corona, and Riverside.
From the KCAA Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jim Rinaldi. For this morning, a mostly cloudy sky, gradually becoming mostly sunny today. Bit of a breeze, high temperature 80. We'll have increasing clouds tonight with areas of fog forming, low 56. Patchy fog to start today, Memorial Day, otherwise sunshine with a high of 88. Sunny Tuesday, high 88. I'm meteorologist Jim Rinaldi, broadcasting live from the Tri-City Center at the 10 and 210 freeways. We are the trifecta of talk in Southern California, KCAA. 102.3 FM Riverside, 106.5 FM Redlands, and the Legacy, 1050 AM, Loma Linda, San Bernardino.
Erin here from On the Brink Morning Show, where we talk about all that is engaging in the Inland Empire. News, politics, business, family, things to do, and so much more. Join us weekdays from 6 to 7 a.m. on KCAA 102.3 FM, 106.5 FM, and 1050 a.m. or on KCAAradio.com.
KCAA, where every day is a great day.
And so, beloved, we are back again, and it is wonderful. It is a wonderful day. It's a little bit overcast, as the weatherman just said. However, what we know is that even with the appearance of something that appears to be overcast or a little bit cloudy, that the sun comes out eventually, and we bask in it, we love it, and especially here in Southern California. And as we recognize our magnificence this morning, I would like to share with you some key concepts, and then Reverend LaVon and I will talk about them with you. We're talking this morning about the fact that you share a creative urge with all of nature. This is who you are. You are a creative being. And the second idea is that your mind itself is an outlet through which the creative intelligence of the universe seeks fulfillment. And we'll delve into that a little bit more. There is a pattern of the unlimited, infinite self within you. And then we'd like for you to understand that you are already a spiritual being. Your experience of life depends upon the choices that you make, not the choices that someone else makes for you. Because once you allow someone to make a choice for you, that was your choice, to allow them to do that. That number 4, there are barriers between you and your good. And your good is a thing of thought. It is actually a thing of thought. And so in religious science, what we say is to change your thinking will absolutely help you to change your life. Now, the fifth concept that I would like to share with you before we get into a lot of discussion is you want to use the law in a way that it brings good into your life and into the lives of others, and that your intuition is constantly supplying you with great ideas. And number 6, you need to learn to listen to your intuition and to take action upon great ideas. And so sometimes we let those ideas go by the wayside. However, it's just simply because we're not secure within ourselves. But we want to allow you to be secure in yourself this morning. And so we'll go back now and share about the creative urge with all of nature. Now, these ideas come from a book called This Thing Called You, written by Ernest Holmes, the dean and founder of religious science. And so we want to talk about the creative urge, how it is expressed through you and through art. And that creative urge that is within you is a very powerful idea. You see, life begins, it begins, and then it begins again after the fire. So what happens is, we had a lot of fires out here in Southern California and in Northern California, all over the state actually. We had fires for the past couple of years. Well, what happens is, what we saw in here in Southern California is the fact that the fire kind of burned things down to the very ground itself, but yet and still, there came, after the fire had died down and there was a little bit of rain later on, that the flowers bloomed excessively, and that there were flowers that we had not seen before. The botanists will tell us that occasionally there are blooms that come only after the fire. So just simply know that if you're going through the fire of things, if you're going through hard times, that the sun is going to shine and you're absolutely going to bloom with something new, something great, and something wonderful. Reverend Levon, do you have any experience that you could share with us about that?
Yeah,
or to talk about that?
I would love to. The creative urge, that's something that, you know how you have that feeling you want to do something, it's in you to do it, and you knew all your life you wanted to do that. So an example that I can give is that years ago when I was a little girl and I went to see a movie, I remember seeing it's a sign that said casting by. And I thought, casting by, what does that mean? Okay, it probably means that they were able to cast all the characters, because I was already doing opera when I was 9 years old. And so I thought, okay, so somebody chose those people. And I would go into, say, an acting group, and I would think, okay, she'd be good in that role, he'd be good in that role, and he could be the queen. I mean, he could be the king, and she could be the queen. And so I'd have that little talent to be able to kind of cast people. And then years later, I'd say about 20 years ago now, I was in Hollywood with my girlfriend, and we had become casting directors. And I'll never forget when I saw up on the screen, casting by Levon Ray Andrews and Carmen Betancourt. I was like, oh my gosh, that dream came into fruition.
Yes, it did.
So it's the idea that you have these creative urges. Guess where they come from? God. They're there, and they want to be expressed. God has to express through people, and actually God expresses through more people. I'm going to guarantee you that God expresses through dogs and cats and other animals and sacred animals, and through the plants. I mean, God expresses every single way, including through fire and through rain. And so we're the energy of humanity, humans that express God. And so whatever your creative urge, have you ever had that feeling, I really want to do that, I just want to do that, maybe I can, just say to yourself, you know, if I had the idea that I can do it, guess where that came from? I think God's given me a hint, so maybe I better act on it. And sure enough, you can do things that you never dreamed you could do.
Right. And it's just a matter of being able to step, so to speak, to the precipice of things, and then just jumping over and knowing that you will be supported. Ralph Waldo Emerson says that once you have an idea and that you're beginning to fulfill this idea, that all the forces of the universe will step forward and support you in the manifestation of this divine idea. All ideas are divine, and because they come from God. It is God desiring to express itself in and through each one of us. And so you throw yourself passionately into the project that you want to achieve and that you want to manifest. And so it sounds like Reverend LaVon had decided on some level to become a casting director, and it actually fulfilled itself. And just sharing with you that our other spiritual companion on this journey, Jean Kennedy, was at her granddaughter's graduation. And the granddaughter, from the time she was very young and understood what the class valedictorian was, she set out and wrote the speeches every year. And what happened? She was actually the class valedictorian this year, and we want to send her many congratulations for that. But that was just an idea that she acquired in her mind, and she expressed it each year. And what happened? She was able to be the class valedictorian. And that's a current idea. That's a contemporary idea. These are not old ideas where we see that artists have painted the ceilings of many cathedrals over there in Europe, and they're lasting testaments to the passion of this individual, but it is also a lasting testament to the ability of God to convey and communicate through the artist itself. And so we give thanks for that.
And it's being able to listen to that inner voice, the God voice, the one that says, go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
To listen to it and then do it.
Yes, and to do it.
Yeah.
And not be afraid, and do not say, I can't do this. Don't say that, because you wouldn't have the idea itself unless you could achieve it. The idea is yours.
One time when I was a little girl, I was probably about 12 years old. I was at, we read a book in school, and I noticed at the front it had a dedication to somebody. So I asked the teacher, who is that lady? And the teacher said, oh, well, it probably was a friend of the writer who thought that maybe she helped him or something in order to write this book. And I said, oh. So in my mind, I thought, I want to be somebody that they dedicate a book to someday. Many, many years later, probably about 15, 20 years ago, somebody did dedicate a book to me. And now my husband dedicates his books to me.
Wonderful. That is wonderful. So we want to continue to know that any idea that we have is God sent. It is God sent, and it is for you to accomplish this idea and to manifest this idea. So the question then becomes, how do you relate to ideas that come to you? And do you pay attention to them? Because this is the creative urge within you that is stirring around and mulling around in your psyche, so to speak, so that you're able to express yourself, and you have the right to manifest this, because it will allow you to live a happier, healthier, richer, more productive life. Where do you think your dreams and desires come from? They come to you during the night sometimes, or you wake up with an aha moment, so to speak, and it is God expressing through you, desiring to express itself in and through you. So has anyone ever tried to discourage you from living your dreams or from manifesting your ideas? I'll bet so.
Okay.
Because
I have a story about that.
you have a story. Okay.
Okay. I always wanted to play the banjo because I lived on the Monterey Peninsula, and we had a wonderful restaurant that they were Dixieland players, and I loved going there. I'd taken my children there. It was a pizza parlor, and it was quite a well-known place. They could be loud there, and because the banjo music was loud, and I'd sit in the front row and just watch the banjo players and thought, I really want to play the banjo. So one day I found a banjo at a thrift store, and I bought it. And I was so excited because I was going to start the banjo. And so I told my best friend at the time that I was going to do that. And her comment to me was, oh, don't you know that the banjo is the hardest instrument there is to play?
Okay.
I said, really? Oh. And I have to say that the wind went out of my sails, and I just idled. And I still haven't played the banjo. I still have it.
Okay.
And I picked it up a few times. I'm like, and I allowed that to happen. Now, it's not huge on my list of things I wanted to do, but it's still there.
Okay.
So, do I hear banjo music in the background?
It could be.
Is this a sign? Am I supposed to move forward on this? Yeah, so it's just interesting how I allowed that to happen. And yet I'm a really strong person. So for me to be able to allow that to happen is kind of surprising. Yeah.
But you'll find that happening throughout most of our family relationships and our societal relationships, just simply because other people don't always listen to the voice of God expressing through them. And so when you come up with an idea, they will try to discourage you from manifesting that idea. And they will tell you things like what she said is that the banjo is the hardest instrument to learn. So you can still get through it. You can still learn to play it. It wouldn't be so popular if it were that hard. So it may have been hard for her, you see. And then other people will tell you, well, you can't become a writer. How do you know that you know how to write when you want to write a poem or something? Or they will tell you, that sucks. That's a sad poem. That's not going to work for you. And the other things that happen, you can't become a great seamstress because you can't sew a straight line, or you can't become that really great mechanic because people are always trying to take advantage of you and get something for nothing. So it's always something. Somebody will tell you that you can't do it because, but what is their because? They are sitting back accomplishing absolutely nothing and will try to discourage you to stay with them. But because you have the energy of God working in and through you and listening to that energy and trying to manifest that energy, you will be supported by, what is it that Emerson says, that you won't be supported by a hobgoblin of a mediocre mind. So you want to understand and step forward into your greatness and manifest the ideas that are coming through you from the power and the presence that we call God.
And the good news about that is pretty soon you won't be attracting those kind of people into your life anymore.
Right.
Because you'll start resonating with people who are also tapping into their creative urge and moving forward with their life. And then it gets exciting. And that's one of the reasons why I love our spiritual center, because there's so many enlivened people there who care deeply and want to do fun things. Whether it's we have an urban garden that we've developed now, we're starting to do a labyrinth out in the yard, and there's so many wonderful things that people are contributing just out of the love of their hearts, expecting nothing in return. And what we all get in return is love, and that's the number one thing. God is love, love is God, and so it is. That could be your prayer for today.
Right, it could be. And let's just declare that it is.
Okay, that's a good one.
Let's
Okay,
just declare
God is
that
love,
it is.
love is God, and so are you, and so it is.
That's right. Because you are a spiritual being. You are a spiritual being living in a spiritual universe governed by spiritual laws. Guess what? You're having a human experience. That's what's happening right now. You're having a human experience, but you are a spiritual being. And so we want to understand that the experience of life itself depends on the choices that you make. So when Reverend Levon was saying that her friend was trying to discourage her from playing the banjo, it wasn't Reverend Levon's choice, it was her friend's choice. But Reverend Levon made a choice to allow her friend to talk to her like that.
Exactly.
And I'm going to say that that was bad talk, but...
By the way, she's still a friend.
She's still a friend, okay.
But she doesn't play the banjo.
She doesn't play the banjo. But the idea is that you still have the banjo and you're going to play it someday, right?
You know it, absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
I should make an affirmation that someday I'd come on and play the banjo.
You
for
can do that.
Okay.
You can do that.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow.
Okay. That will work. But what happens is people don't understand always that they're not supporting you when they tell you these things. They think that they're doing it out of love.
Right.
Sometimes, so many times they think that they're doing it out of love because someone had told them that they were unable to accomplish something because, and we don't always know what that because is, and it doesn't always reflect itself in our experience because that's not our idea. That's not our idea. So we want to step into our magnificence, our royal magnificence, and know that we can accomplish what God has implanted in our psyche, in our hearts, in our desire to accomplish. And so what we want to understand is that we cannot be overwhelmed with responsibility for our life. We just simply live our life and live it to the best of our abilities and our talents. Because living life is a talent sometimes.
That's true.
It is, because there are things that kind of step in your way, that sometimes there are barriers that exhibit themselves. And so we have to find out where we are living, where our contentment comes from. And our contentment many times is a result of a statement that Jesus made that says, "It is done unto you as you believe." What is your belief system this morning, beloved? What is it that you actually believe about yourself? What do you believe that you can accomplish without sharing that information with someone that is not going to support your idea because they don't know how to support your idea? Does that make sense? I hope it does. They don't know how to support your idea, so they come to you with love, and that becomes a barrier. But your belief system itself is so much greater, so much larger than any barrier that can be put in front of you. What you believe, what is it that you believe about the thing that you want to manifest and come into your life? And so there are ideal situations, creative expressions, and relationships that we want to delve into and make these relationships ones that are supportive, ones that are what we call in New Thought like-minded. We want to have those kind of relationships, and these are the things that help us to ascend to our greatness, because we're always just one step, just our greatness is always just one step ahead of us. We're always desiring to reach our greatness, and as we reach our greatness, it seems like it's just a little bit further, but what happens is we're becoming greater and greater. We are experiencing always our greater yet to be. And so that empowers us. It makes us very powerful people. And we live in this idea of our spiritual magnificence at all times.
It's interesting that that's part of our talk today that we're doing at our spiritual center. Is somebody mentioned, well, how come we don't come onto this planet already aware, already awake? Why do we have to seek it? Well, because each time we seek it, we get more aware and more awakened. Plus, we have compassion and understanding for those that may not be on that path that you're on.
Right.
And you're more compassionate and as I said, understanding, caring about people that seemingly are worse off. And so we're constantly having the upward spiral to keep going higher and higher to our magnificence.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And what that does is, what that says is that we're practicing.
Yes.
Practicing spirit, so to speak. We practice spirit when we meditate. We practice being in spirit when we do our affirmative affirmations, when we do our affirmative prayers, when we indulge in inspirational reading and listening to great and wonderful music. What we know is that all of this is taking us higher and higher into our spiritual magnificence. Yes?
Absolutely.
That's where we're going.
Yes.
And so we have to sometimes have a vision of where it is that we want to go. And we have a technique in religious science and in other spiritual traditions too that we call visioning. We sit and we ask, what is God's idea for the plan that we want to execute? What are the project that we want to manifest? What is God's idea about this? And when we're asking about God's idea, then what we're saying to ourselves is, we're asking God to reveal itself in and through us as the greatest idea for this project. And we then accomplish according to the ideas that come through us, from the presence that we call God. And so we want to have this vision. You see, visioning, having a vision, where there's no vision, the people perish. So we want to have a vision so that we can, again, step into our greater yet to be, so that we can know exactly where it is that we want to go. And in Emerson's essay on self-reliance, what he says is that intuition is constantly supplying you with great and wonderful ideas. Now, he also says to believe your own thought, to believe that what is true for you in your private heart is true for all men. That is genius. So that means that we are one with each other, because what's true for you is absolutely true for me.
Yes.
It is true for Patty. It is true for our engineer, Joseph. Everything is truth.
Exactly.
We are all one with each other, and we can't allow any idea of separation to step into that.
Do you want proof of that?
Yes.
I've
give
got
me
proof. Okay,
You've got
here's proof. Yes.
Okay.
Have you ever thought of an idea, and a couple of weeks later, a month later, a year later, you find out that somebody else already invented it?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Well, my son, one time when he was a little boy, he was about 12, he was sitting in, I had a beauty salon in Carmel at the time, and he came in for his haircut, and he's sitting there looking at the curling irons, and they were plugged in, or not turned on, but they were plugged in, and he's staring at them and staring at them. I didn't know what he was doing. I was just cutting his hair. And finally he said, "Mom, I've got an invention." I said, "What?" He said, "Those curling irons that's there, what do they do?" And I explained, and he says, "You know what? I could make them so that they would turn." I said, "Really?" Now he's only a little 12-year-old boy, but he had this idea that he could make it so it would oscillate, so it would turn. I said, "That's a brilliant idea. Oh my gosh." Well, just last year I was up visiting. He lives in the San Jose area, and we went to one of the major stores, and he came over with me with this box, and he goes, "Mom, remember my invention? There it is." I said, "Really?" Now, I will say he actually submitted his idea.
Okay.
When he was about 19, I think. He gathered together all the money he had. He put a patent on it. It was $500, but it just went awash. So we don't know what happened to it. I seriously doubt that the idea was stolen, because in the mind of God, these ideas are everywhere. We all have the opportunity to have these ideas. It's the difference between those who act on the ideas and those who think about the ideas. So the importance is to act on it if it's that important to you. If it's not, it's okay. Let somebody else have it then. Give it away. It's fine.
Further proof of the idea that we are one and that we can all draw upon this reservoir of great ideas from the universe itself is the idea that someone made a trek to some mountains over in Asia at one point and found a very primitive people living there, and what these people were doing was making a rudimentary typewriter. And we had experienced typewriters before. As a matter of fact, it was about the time that the IBM Selectric machine came out, and there was this little ball on the on the typewriter when you would type with that. And but these people were trying to do the same thing. So what happened was someone in their tribe just became aware that they could do typewriting. But we had already, and when I say we, the Western society had already created the Selectric typewriter, and therefore they had used the mind of God perhaps in advance of this tribe being able to use that. But the ideas are there, and we can always use them. And so let me ask you, in order to be content with yourself, in order to love yourself, because a lot of times stepping into a new idea means I have to love myself enough to know that this is going to accomplish something that's going to make me happy.
Right.
So a couple of questions that would support you at this particular time. First is, how would you like to spend most of your time? How would you like to spend your time? And then what are some of the things that you enjoy doing the very most? What is it that you like to do? And what places do you find most peaceful? And then something that's very important is, what would be the ultimate love relationship for you? This can be romantic love, or it can be agape love. And how do you picture perfect health? What does that look like? What does it feel like? We're stepping into visioning when we ask those questions. How do you picture your perfect health? And then, what does infinite abundance look like? What does that look like? Is it an abundance of friends? Is it an abundance of money? Or is it an abundance of food? The idea is that abundance is everywhere available. We just have to wake up, recognize it, accept it, and move on. That's what we have to do. And what makes us, what gives us the most confidence? What is it that we do, or in what situation do we feel confident of ourselves and stepping into our confident nature? And the other thing is, in what situation do you feel empowered? What is it that you do or what happens to you that makes you feel empowered? What is it that allows this to happen? And then what does perfect order in your life look like? What does that look like? And we're not talking about, like a messy room or anything, but we're just talking about the orderly things that you do in life. What does that look like? And then what does beauty look like for you? What does that look like in your life? And what is the most beautiful object that you have ever seen? What is that? What does it look like to you? What does it feel like for you? But what is this beautiful, wonderful object? These are questions that we would like for you to ask yourself as you discover who you are, because you are truly a magnificent being, and we're going to expound on this a little bit further next week. And we will help you to decide what it is that's going to give you the most joy in life as a magnificent, wonderful creature of the universe. And what happens is, I'm just excited about Reverend Levon's little doggy, because that dog has given her so much joy and so much contentment and making her feel very, very special. And so all of her nurturing instincts are coming to the forefront at this particular time.
I never knew I could love. That kind of love is different than the love of my wonderful children, because I had 3 children, adopted the 4th, and I can truthfully say that you love the adopted children as much as the others, if not a tiny bit more, because you're taking on somebody else's child, and it's a very special thing to do. And I just didn't know, and it's opened my heart and my eyes to all kinds of things that, as you said, the nurturing, the giving. And that's what I was going to say about all the questions you asked. For me, almost all the answers have to do with giving of myself to somebody else. Okay. And I don't mean giving up myself. I mean, I want to be true to myself, or true to my God self, but to also engage other people, to help other people, to see their truth, their light, their wisdom, to stay out of judgment, to understand try to be in other people's, stand in their shoes for a while and see what they're going through, and be compassionate. To me, that's fabulous. A huge part of my life.
And you know what? That empowers you spiritually.
Yes.
As you give to others and understanding that you are a spiritual being just as they are a spiritual being. But what? You're both having a human experience.
That's right. Exactly.
And so a lot of times we think that, how could this happen to me? I'm going through so much. Nobody understands. Yes, they do.
Yeah.
Because they have been through or going through the same things perhaps that you are going through.
And that's why I had a conversation with somebody the other day, because we do spiritual counseling, and this woman said to me, I'm kind of embarrassed to tell you this, and because it has kind of a bad word in it, and I said, don't worry about it. As ministers, we hear everything. We've heard everything. So say whatever you need to say, and know that it's safe. We don't tell anybody. I don't tell my husband anything. It's sacred and it's safe, and it's something you need to express. So that's a really amazing ability to be able to be that person for somebody else. Yeah. And now my dog's that person for me. By the name the name of my dog is Cargo.
Cargo.
And the reason he's called that is because the first time I ever met my little doggy was I was backing out of our parking spot, and I saw a little black thing running. I thought, what is that? And it was a little doggy, and I was so grateful I hadn't run over him. And so then I took off, and I came back. There was the same little doggy. Now the dog was between my husband's old van and my car, okay? So every time I'd want to go somewhere, he'd be by my car. So I called him Cargo. And he's been in the car twice, or
Okay,
she.
that's a delightful one. And so at this moment, because we've had so much to discuss this morning that we have to speed up just a little bit
Okay.
here. And we're going to move into affirmative prayer, do a spiritual mind treatment for everyone out there. And just simply relax with us for a moment. And what we want to know without a doubt that God is simply all that there is. God representing its magnificent self in and through each one of us, representing itself as the energy that is propelling this entire universe. And so we are in a state of eternal gratitude for this gift of life itself. This gift of this dimension of life, for life itself is eternal, ongoing, and infinite. So we are in a state of eternal gratitude. And so I am speaking my word this morning, the word of truth, that says that everyone within the thought of my consciousness is hereby healed of anything that is unlike perfect health, that is unlike abundance, that is unlike prosperous prosperity. God is just simply all that there is and represents itself as perfect health, as abundance and prosperity, as those divine, like-minded relationships that we desire and that we experience. We are giving thanks once again for that itself. We are thankful for everyone knowing that there is perfect health abounding, specifically speaking my word this morning for Rosalind, knowing that digestive issues that seem to be affecting her are hereby eliminated, sent back to their native nothingness. We acknowledge that life itself is good and very good on each level of our concern. So we give thanks for that. We are thankful for the ability to communicate with each one listening to us here today, knowing that this program itself has been a help and a blessing to someone. It has been a blessing and has empowered myself. It has empowered Reverend Levon. It has empowered Patty, and our engineer is inspired. So we are just grateful for the attitude of love and joy, knowing that life itself is good and very good. And so it is.
And so it is.
So it perfectly is. And we'll see you next week. And don't forget the food giveaway at the Center for Spiritual Living Inland Empire this coming Thursday. There is a tremendous amount of food that is being shared. And so if you are in need or know someone in need of food, please stop by the center between the hours of 10 and noon this coming Thursday. Peace and blessings to each one of you.